back. You're watching What's Hot on CNBC TV 18. Let's take a look at the market action of the day. It was another day where the bears dominated proceedings on the Lal Street. So late fight back by the bulls helped curb losses, but benchmarks ended 0.1% in the red. Bank Nifty and the mid-caps underperformed, with the latter falling almost 1%. If you look at the full week now, it's been all red. So Nifty and Sensex have lost more than 1.5%. Banks have done slightly better, while mid-caps, infra and metals are worst off, as you can see on your screens, down by 4.6 to 4.9%. And here's an exclusive story breaking at this hour, latest from the debt-laden Jet Airways, where the lenders have decided to strap into the pilot's seat, proposing to take on a majority stake in the company by converting debt into equity shares. Sources say that the airline is exploring the option of raising funds through a rights issue. Ritu Singh is here with exclusive details. Ritu, you have the exact details of the pricing. What are you picking up?
Well, Jet Airways, in its bank-led provisional resolution plan, did announce that it was looking to meet a funding gap of about 8,500 crore rupees through a mix of debt restructuring, fresh equity infusion and asset monetization. So now we've been speaking to our sources in the banking circles, and what we're given to understand is that Jet Airways is looking to raise over 4,000 crore rupees via a rights issue, which will be priced at anywhere between 125 to 150 per share, which is almost half of what the current market price of Jet Airways is, at about 230 rupees per share. Further, we're given to understand that lenders are looking to convert about 800 to 1,000 crore rupees of debt into instruments, which they hope, when the company returns to profitability, they will be able to get some sort of an upside, from that stake that they'll hold. Also, we're given to understand that Jet Airways is looking to raise another 1,700 crore rupees via sale and leaseback of its aircrafts. That is part of the asset monetization plan. And do remember, this will only meet a certain portion of the requirement. In the rights issue, Jet is hopeful that Etihad, perhaps even Naresh Goyal, and if required, lenders will also participate to help it raise that money. Do remember, the debt company is currently sitting on is about 8,200 crore rupees to a consortium led by State Bank of India, which after restructuring will become the single largest shareholder in Jet Airways.
Okay, Ritu, thanks for again with that. So that's exclusive details of the fine print and the pricing of that deal. And of course, the nod and the formal shareholder nod is expected on the 21st. The big court story of the day, the Supreme Court has expressed displeasure over defective review petitions and modifications in the Rafael judgment. A bench headed by the Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi, observed that instead of rectifying the errors in the review pleas, some lawyers have chosen to go to the media for publicity. Ashmit Kumar is here with more on this. Ashmit, what were the CJI's observations?
Right, so before we get into today's developments, just a quick benefit of hindsight for our viewers. Let's keep in mind that 2018, the landmark Rafale judgment, the judgment which had given a clean sheet to the government, was in fact subject to a great deal of ridicule, a great deal of criticism on account of various factual inaccuracies. Now, factual inaccuracies to an extent that both the sides, the government as well as the petitioners, had moved modification, clarification and review petitions before the apex court. Now, all that ridicule and all that criticism appears to have irked Justice Gogoi. Mind you, he was the judge who authored the Rafale judgment in the first place. That appears to have irked him, because today, in an unrelated case, Justice Gogoi, in a thinly veiled reference, lashed out at both the government as well as the petitioners. In fact, on an unrelated note, he pointed out, he made an observation that while there was huge publication given and huge publicity was given to how modification and review petitions had been filed, he noted today that both these sets of petitions are suffering from various defects, that despite the urgency that was shown initially, no effort has gone into curing those defects for those petitions to be listed and heard by the apex court, that they've been lying dormant for about a month. And then he went on to also say, and I quote him here, that even the other side is not innocent. So again, a very thinly veiled reference that coming in from Justice Gogoi. Let's keep in mind that the government's modification petition as well as the review petition that had been filed by Bhushan and Company are still currently pending before the apex court for consideration. That's for a later date. Inspired by the ridicule and criticism, Justice Gogoi mounting a defense of the apex court. Back to you.
Okay, Ashmit, thanks for joining in with that. Now, the tax department is going after 30,000 entities that are suspected of delaying their tax payments. This in a bid to shore up the GST revenue collections. Let's understand what the implications are of that story. Timsi Chepuria is here with the details. Timsi, how has the taxman zeroed in on these very entities?
Well, as you rightly mentioned, in a bid to improve GST collections, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs has reworked its strategy to meet the monthly GST collections target. Now, sources indicated that CBIC, as a part of its latest strategy, using a series of measures including smart data analytics, has identified entities which were either not paying GST or were just delaying their returns. In a first of this exercise, which it undertook at the end of last month, Centre had identified 30,000 such entities and had shared their details with the field formations. Field formations then reaching out to them, asking them to make timely payment and settle their returns. This alone yielded to about close to over 6,000 odd crore rupees of GST dues, which were collected in the last 3 days of January itself, trying to help the government to cross the 1 lakh crore rupee mark. Involving in this exercise is a special team housed in CBIC itself, which shall be repeating this exercise every month, thus trying to help government to achieve the monthly average GST collections target, which is pegged at 1 lakh crore of rupees. Remember, in this fiscal, the government has seen this magical number only twice, first in September and next in December. So let's see whether this strategy helps the government any further to it, or will it have to again go back to the drawing board to see what next best it can do. We'll keep you posted. Back to you.
All right, MC, thanks for that. Now on to a cnbc TV 18 special report. Political funding through electoral bonds has witnessed a sharp surge after the assembly polls in 5 states. Kevin Lee is here with exclusive details. Kevin, take us to the information that you've gathered so far.
Well, after the results of state elections in December, we've seen a spike in the funding that political parties are getting from the new electoral bond instruments. In fact, for the latest tranche of electoral bonds that were issued in January this year, it spiked almost 100% to 350 crore rupees over the number that it was in the last tranche, which was issued in November 2018. Also, importantly, this is the highest number of bonds bought in any tranche since the electoral bonds were first issued in March 2018. Further to that, high denomination bonds, which are either 10 lakh rupee bonds or 1 crore rupee bonds, accounted for over 99% of the total money that was raised through electoral bonds. Let's just take you quickly through the trend that we've seen since electoral bonds were first issued in March 2018. So as you can see here, it started strong with 222 crore rupees raised in the first tranche. After that, we saw a gradual dip in April, May, eventually falling to just 32.5 crore rupees raised in July 2018. Since then, however, we've seen a gradual upswing as well. That number spiked in October 2018 with 401 crore rupees worth of bonds being raised. Remember, this was the last tranche before 5 key state elections that we saw in November and December. The number fell again in November to 184 crore rupees. And for the latest tranche, we've seen that number come back to 937 bonds issued worth 350 crore rupees. Now, of course, we don't know which parties are really receiving these donations through electoral bonds because that is anonymous. However, it is a heartening sign that before the Lok Sabha elections, we're seeing an uptick in donations to political parties through these electoral bonds.
Well, that is interesting news indeed. Thanks, Kevin, for joining in with that. But we will have to wrap up this edition of What's Hot on that note. Thank you for watching. From all of us here, up next is being an all-red week on the street. Nifty and Sensex have lost more than 1.5%. Taking stock will take you through all the key highlights of the market action this week and get you trade ready for next week. I will see you on India Business Hour with all the top stories of the day in 30 minutes. Stay tuned.